Hi, everyone. My name is Julia Galwitz. Thank you so much for tuning into my presentation today. Today, I will be presenting on social media and age restrictions. And so, the main question I am trying to evaluate is, should social media be age restricted, or should we potentially ban minors from social media altogether? In recent years, social media has become quite the hot topic. From discussions around the US TikTok ban to various regulations implemented by US states and countries worldwide limiting access to social media, there has been quite the buzz surrounding social media regulation. In just a couple of short decades, the nature of social media has completely evolved. We've moved from simple blog posts and fun MySpace profiles to widespread social media use and content creation. In fact, it is estimated that over 5 billion people, or about two-thirds of the world's population, use some form of social media. You can see just how much the user base has increased between 2000 and 2024 on this bottom chart. It has been an exponential increase over time. And social media has become so ingrained in our culture, particularly among the youth. In fact, a study that was put out by YouthNet UK claims that 75% of young people said that they could not live without the internet. For generations of young people who never knew life before social media, this evolution has connected us in ways that were once totally inconceivable. Social media has allowed people to cultivate friendships across the globe, express themselves, share their art and creations, and build communities around shared interests. It has become a tool for teaching, learning, and just sharing, and even a path to monetization for some. Social media has provided incredible benefits to so many people all around the world. Though there is another less glamorous side to this. Research has shown that social media use is negatively influencing young people. There's increasing evidence to suggest that social media use is associated with increased mental health issues, poor body image, and shorter attention spans, particularly in young people. Social media can also be risky, exposing young people to predators and potentially explicit content. And due to all these factors, there is a lot of discussion regarding whether regulations on social media should be implemented, and specifically concerning whether young people's access to social media should be reduced or even just outright banned. And ultimately, this is an issue that affects us all. While young people do seem to be the most vulnerable to these potential harms of social media, adults are also at risk for very similar issues. And on the other hand, both groups do also benefit in similar ways, and so it is a difficult topic to approach. There are many discussions on both sides of the argument, both for and against limiting social media access to minors. And throughout this project, I utilized text data to explore and analyze both sides of the argument. Here, I will share a little bit about my data and exploratory findings. I listed my data sources here, and I had gathered data from the News API, pulling headlines and content of articles. I also used the Reddit API, which included pulling comments from specifically from discussions surrounding this topic. And I pulled text from blog posts discussing both sides of the issue. I started out with pretty raw data, which was just these comments and walls of text. I went through and hand labeled and hand cleaned a lot of it as well. And I won't delve into the data cleaning process here, but the data was transformed from these plain comments to a labeled, structured, and vectorized data frame. And then on the bottom right here, you will see a word cloud that I created to showcase the words that people are discussing when talking about these topics as a whole, so including both sides of the discussion. So people are talking about parents, the medium, potentially concerning the medium of the content, access, teens, adults, age, young, law, privacy, friends, concern, conversation, danger, mental health, and information, among many others. And so we see that there are a lot of different topics that people are discussing when they are addressing these social media concerns. And moving on to my models, I began with some exploratory data analysis, which included topic modeling. And there were some interesting distinctions found here. So, one of the primary topics included words such as parents, access, world, make, and age. And this topic could potentially be related to individuals who believe that it's more the parents' responsibility to limit their children's access to social media, that it is sort of ingrained into our world, and that perhaps it's parents rather than maybe the government who are responsible for implementing laws to prohibit children or protect them on social media. So ultimately, this could be a discussion about who is really responsible here. And on the other hand, we see a topic containing the words mental, need, online, and children. And this topic could potentially be discussing mental health issues, the need for some sort of control, and just a general sentiment about children being online. And the first machine learning model that I implemented was multinomial naive Bayes. This model performed pretty well overall with an accuracy of 71%. So, in the context of this project, the for label designates arguments that were in favor of social media restriction or banning, and the against label represents arguments that were against banning social media for minors. And so we see that this model correctly predicted against 81% of the time, whereas it predicted for correctly 61% of the time. And so overall, this accuracy indicates that the model performed decently well. It's better than a random coin flip. It is interesting that the against label was strongly favored here. This label did a much better job of predicting that one compared to the for label, although still both labels were pretty solid overall. And this just indicates that there is a difference in the discussion and the content, the language surrounding either side. So there's significant variation in the language that's being utilized when you are in favor of social media banning versus against. Next, I implemented a decision tree, which was found to have an accuracy of 69%. Interestingly, the root node was found to be the word kid. So when kid was used less than 2.5 times, that signaled the against class. And when kid was used more than 2.5 times, that was more likely to be associated with the for class. And another interesting finding for me were the leaf nodes here. So one of the leaves was found to be dangerous, being less than one. So if dangerous was less than one, that meant the final split was towards against. And when dangerous was more than one, that meant the final split was towards for. And so I found this to be pretty interesting. It appears ultimately that those who are in favor of a social media ban are more likely to discuss the dangers surrounding it, as opposed to those who are against it, maybe discussing the dangers less. And another interesting leaf node was found to be the word mental. So mental being less than or equal to 0.5 indicated an against argument, and mental being greater than 0.5 indicated a for argument. And similarly, we see that people who are in favor of social media ban tend to discuss mental health issues and the various things surrounding that, whereas those who are against it are not discussing mental health as much. And finally, the best performing model was the support vector classifier with a linear kernel. And so this one had the highest accuracy overall with an accuracy of 77%. The model correctly predicted the for label 78% of the time, and the against label 75% of the time. And so this was also more balanced compared to the multinomial naive Bayes. Of course, we see that it performed with better accuracy overall, but both of the labels were also much more balanced compared to one another. And this is not too surprising. Although the data is highly dimensional due to the large number of features, we do only have two labels. This indicates that in many of the dimensions, these labels are linearly separable, which makes sense. Two labels, two discussions. And it is overall interesting that the model performed so well. And so, just some key takeaways. There is meaningful variation between the for and against classes in the data. People who are discussing social media and are in support of the ban are often talking about different aspects of the argument compared to those who are against it. So ultimately, we see that there is meaningful variation between the two arguments. And both sides have legitimate but varying concerns, such as mental health and dangers on the support of ban side versus potentially government intervention, or who should really be responsible on the against side. And ultimately, social media restriction is a complex issue with compelling arguments on both sides. There is a lot to be said here, but at the end of the day, this is a very pressing issue. It is something that does need to be addressed, and it is something that affects us all. And that concludes my project. Thank you so much.